what's up? This is Patrick. Welcome to Double ETF, episode 9, Everything Except the Football. Today, my guest is Andy Solum from Florida. We had a good talk. There was plenty of sports as usual, some music as well, and then some quirky questions. Also a little bit of everything else. And it was a fun conversation. Yeah, if you want to reach out, you can do so on Twitter. My handle is EETFpod. And yeah, that's it. I hope you enjoyed this conversation with Andy Solum. Thanks. All right. With me now today is Andy Solum. Hi, Andy. How are you?
Hey, Patrick. How you doing? I'm doing good.
Good. Thanks. So we know each other from the Name That Tune weekly quiz. Okay, so I know a couple of things about you and vice versa, but why don't you tell us about yourself a little bit more?
Okay, so my name is Andy Solum, and huge music freak, and I got lucky enough to kind of get into this musical family and podcast family with Rock Solid and Pat and of course all the crew from Name That Tune. So I've really been enjoying that, and I live in Florida. I'm a Florida native. Right now I'm in Sarasota, Florida, which is part of Tampa Bay. I'm about 45 minutes south of Tampa, St. Pete, Clearwater area. So I've been in Sarasota for almost my whole life. I was in Tampa just before that, and I love it here. It's a beautiful city, and it's not as big as Tampa or Orlando, and it's not a small town either. So it's just it's kind of a nice mix. It has a lot of everything to do here. So I really like it.
So you've always lived in Florida. You've never lived in another state.
Correct.
All right. You must have studied in Florida then, I guess. Where did you go to?
I did all my local schooling here, and then I went to college at Florida State University, which is in our state capital up in Tallahassee.
The Seminoles.
Correct. Yeah.
Yes.
My parents went there, and my brother went there. So okay. We bleed garnet and gold. That's the colors.
Nice. So what did you study there?
I studied psychology.
And did you work in that field afterwards, or?
No. I went into, this is kind of where my love of music kind of comes in. I worked at, I had a history of working for different record stores as a kid. Mm-hmm. There was this mom and pop shop, which was a bike ride away when I was a teenager that I used to go to, a real small record store. And what made it unique was he rented records.
Oh,
so you could rent an album.
Okay.
And this is the early to mid 80s here. So this is way before any kind of technology or anything like that. So that made it unique. You could rent an album for $2, and you could keep it for a few days.
Okay.
And you put a deposit down for the total cost of the album. And then if you liked it, you could keep it and not have to return because you paid for it. But if you didn't like it, or if you just wanted to tape some of the songs off it or tape it on a cassette, you could bring it back, and then you would get your deposit back.
Oh, nice.
So I used to go in there all the time, and the guy who ran it got to know me pretty well. And one day he offered me a job, and really he was the only one who ran it. It was real small. So I was, I think, 14 and a half at the time.
Okay.
And I was working in this little record store all by myself. I would open, I would close. I could play records all day long. My friends could come in, we'd play records. So that was really neat. And then I got a job at a big chain record store called Camelot Music, which was pretty big and back in the 70s, 80s, and 90s. And it's been gone now for quite a while. But that was in the mall, and I worked there for several years. And I just love music so much that when I finished college, I wanted to go into management with Camelot Music. Mm-hmm. So I did their management training program for about a year until they gave me a store. So I got my own store, and I ran that for just a couple years. And I think I was 21 at the time, so I was just a kid. Moved away and got my own place and was the manager of this record store with a bunch of other 20-somethings and teenagers. It was fun. I realized that retail wasn't something that I wanted to do for the rest of my life.
Hmm.
Working in a mall. So I left after a couple of years, but that's what I did right after college. I went straight into working for management, Camelot Music.
Let's stick to music for a little bit. Do you play any musical instruments?
I do, not as often as I'd like, but I do play guitar. I picked that up when my older brother, who was a big influence in my musical universe, he bought a guitar. So whenever he wasn't home, I would go into his room and fart around on it. And I think the first song I learned to play was the Kinks' "All Day and All Night,"
Okay.
because it's very simple and just one string. So I just learned by ear, just listening to records and stuff, and he showed me some chords and stuff. So I play guitar a little bit. I can play bass a little bit, drums very rudimentally. And then my family was pretty musical too. A lot of us were in orchestras and bands and stuff. So when I was in junior high, I wanted to join the school band, and I wasn't sure what to play. And my parents kind of talked me into playing the French horn.
Oh, wow.
Which I think is a beautiful instrument. And no one else in my family had played it. So I figured, what the heck, I'll give this a shot. There's so many trumpet players that they're a dime a dozen. So I figured I could try out the French horn. So I played that all the way through junior high school and through high school. Performed in some lots of band competitions.
Okay.
I was in marching band for 4 years in high school.
Okay.
Which was a lot of fun. And my senior year, I was the drum major of our high school marching band, which was really cool. We got to go on trips and things like that. And our high school marching band was considered one of the best high school marching bands in the country.
Oh, wow.
And so we got invited to a lot of places. And my junior year, we got invited, and this is going to date me for sure, but we got invited to Reagan's inauguration.
Oh, wow.
For the parade for Ronald Reagan. That must have been his second election, because it was in 84, 85. So
Okay.
I think the election was in 84. So it would have been the spring of early 85.
You mentioned your brother earlier. What's the age difference between you two?
Just 4 years.
And do you have other brothers and sisters?
Yeah, I have another brother who's 3 years, 3 years older. But my oldest brother was the one who was mostly into music, and he was just old enough to be the one to bring home the records.
Okay.
He was just ahead. When I was 8, he was 12. When I was 9, he was 13. Stuff. So he was cooler than me, and he would bring albums home, and because I had discovered Kiss on my own.
Okay.
That was kind of the band that I was at that perfect age in 1977, 1978 to discover Kiss, and of course, and Star Wars had just come out. So, I mean, I was of the Kiss and Star Wars generation, where I was, 8, 9, 10 years old, and it was made for me, and for kids my age. So, Kiss was my first band that I found like on my own, but he was the one who would bring home all kinds of records, that were big back in the day. I still remember when he brought home the first Van Halen album.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, you got to hear this. And he, put the needle down on Eruption. And
Okay.
that, blew my mind.
Yeah.
So he would always, he was older and he had a part-time job and stuff, so he could afford records and stuff. So he would always bring records home. So
Okay.
I would always go into his room when he was at work or when he was out and about, and listen to all of his records.
So he was 4 years older, and he pretty much taught you how to play guitar, more or less. Or did you take classes or learned on your own? Or
yeah, I mean, he would show me some chords, and sometimes I would watch him. Like I would hear him, playing something really cool. So I'd say, "Oh, show me how to do that," and he would show me how to do that. But mostly it was just by ear. I would read some tablature books, but yeah, I never took any lessons. And of course, you couldn't go online to look up any YouTube videos.
yeah.
Either at that time. So yeah, I just taught myself.
And what would you say are your top 3 favorite bands?
That's kind of a tough one. It's funny, if somebody who's as big of a music freak as I am, I really like those types of questions, like what's your favorite album of all time? I don't have an answer because there's just so many. But for me, I would have to say the Beatles are number one. For obvious reasons. I love the Beatles, and a lot of the music that I like. My style of music that I like is a lot of it is birthed from the Beatles.
Okay.
That very melodic, music is something that really catches my ear. So a lot of the bands that I like are very Beatlesque. So the Beatles would be number one. And then my other favorite bands are Cheap Trick, which are obviously very Beatles influenced. Kiss, of course, just because when I was a little kid, that was just my world. And
yes,
I still like Kiss. I can certainly understand the people that don't like them. And there's a lot of their catalog that I think is garbage myself. But
nothing less.
yeah, but I definitely love a lot of it, and they're a fun band to follow and to talk about and stuff. So I still like Kiss. Probably another favorite band is the Posies.
Yeah,
It's one of my other all-time favorite bands. They're not a huge band, but I love them, and I've followed them since their first record. And pretty much, they say that you always love the bands that you loved when you were 15 are the bands that you're going to love forever.
Yeah.
So that was high school for me, and I was all about album-oriented rock, arena rock.
Okay.
So Journey, Styx, Foreigner, Bryan Adams, Night Ranger, Survivor, Kansas, like any band like that. I loved then, still love to this day. Artists that can make music that sounds like that era, because there's some bands that are out now that are heavily influenced by that sound, and they sound just like it.
Such as?
There's a band called Lionville, which sounds just like, Survivor, Journey, Night Ranger.
Wow.
And they have another band called Work of Art.
Okay.
And it definitely just very strong, melodic, well-produced, slick, radio-ready rock that sounds exactly like that, mid-80s.
And where are they from, those two bands?
They're from Sweden, I think.
Wow.
They're kind of the same band. They have the same lead singer and a couple of same members, but they have two different projects that they put out. But I think that they're from Sweden.
Do you have any favorite bands from Florida?
None that are currently still around, but I like the band called Saigon Kick a lot, which was out in the early 90s, and they kind of had they never really fit in. They were kind of sort of a Jane's Addiction sounding band, but more straight ahead rock. So I really like them. I like Tom Petty, of course. He's from Gainesville.
So even though he is a gator?
yeah, exactly.
Okay.
I'll forgive him for that. Florida's hasn't really been a real hotbed for a lot of bands, though. I mean, they're Skynyrd, but I'm not.
Yeah.
I like Leonard Skinner, and I can appreciate them, but I'm not a huge fan.
I mean, I guess Tom Petty and Leonard Skinner are the two most important bands from Florida, I guess?
In terms of rock, yeah, for sure.
Okay, so if we can switch gears for a few seconds, are you a big sports guy?
Yeah, I do. I like sports.
All right.
I can never really play sports. I didn't get into sports until I was about 12 or 13. Before that, I had zero interest in playing or watching sports.
Okay.
And then because I was so into music and things like, I'm more of a creative artistic type of a mind. So sports wasn't something I was interested in. But I fell in love with the Atlanta Braves in the early 80s. They were the southeastern United States team, because they were the only team in this whole part of the United States was the Atlanta Braves.
I never thought of that.
Yeah, they were it.
Okay.
There was no other teams in the Carolinas or Florida, those areas, the whole southeastern United States. So
I guess the closest teams would have been in Texas, right?
Yeah, probably.
Oh, wow. Okay. Atlanta Braves, from my memory, they weren't really good in the 80s, right?
They were good for a couple years in the 80s.
Okay.
For 82, 83, when they had Dale Murphy.
Dale Murphy, yeah.
He was my childhood hero.
Huh. So baseball would be your favorite sport then?
Yeah, I think so. So yeah, I fell in love with the Braves, and then a few years later, when I went to college, of course, I always followed college football because of my parents, and so
Okay.
I love that. And Florida got the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in '76.
Yes.
so I've been a Bucs fan ever since then.
Okay.
And then we got the Lightning in 91.
Around that, yes.
92, we got the Bolts. So I'm a Lightning fan. So yeah, those are my teams. The three and then Tampa
The
Bay
Panthers?
Rays came in 98.
Okay.
So it was tough for me because the Braves were really, really, really good in the late 90s. But then we got, at the time they were, of course, the Devil Rays. So I became a huge fan of them, but they were horrible, for so many years. So
true.
I'm still a Braves fan. They're my National League team, but the Rays are my favorite team. They're more local, and I've been going to their games for years and years now.
Okay, so then I guess when the Florida Panthers and the Florida Marlins came in, you had no interest because you already had your hockey and baseball teams.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. Plus, I don't like teams from Miami. I think being from the Tampa Bay area, we don't like teams from Miami. I can't stand the Miami Hurricanes. They're a big rival to Florida State, so I hate them.
Yeah.
So any teams from Miami, I don't like.
I'll be honest, I was really big into college football when I was in college, and the Hurricanes were my team.
I mean, they were good. I mean, they definitely rivaled. If you look at their history with Florida State, pretty equal, in terms of championships and Heisman's and, strong seasons and stuff. So, yeah, they were the bitter rival for a long time.
And what I liked about them, I was a bit of a shithead in college, is that the Hurricanes didn't give a shit about being classy or following protocol. They won't taunt and, they didn't care. And I kind of like that, I gotta admit. But I have no idea how the Seminoles have been doing after Bobby Bowden retired. Have they been still in the hunt, or?
They were for a few years. They won a national title. Just a few years. That was what, 20? It's been 7 years now. 2013.
Okay.
But the last 4 years they have not been good. They've been pretty bad. But they were good for 40 years. Things, as I get older, you put things into perspective, and it's, teams go up and down, and there's cycles, and you're good for a few years, and then you're distinct for a few years. And so I'm not really sweating it too much.
Right now, okay, so this past baseball season, have you been able to go to the baseball games?
Last year, they didn't allow fans.
At all?
At all.
Okay.
Except for the playoffs. And my son and I, it was kind of a spur of the moment thing. Actually, it was a last minute thing, but then we decided to go to the World Series since my Rays were in the World Series.
Okay.
So they were allowing just like 25% capacity. So we went on StubHub and got tickets and flew to Dallas because that's where they were playing the World Series that year.
Okay.
The new Texas Ranger Stadium. So went up for just a couple nights, and we had realistic expectations. The Dodgers were far and away the best team this past season, and I didn't think that the Rays were going to win the World Series, but and they didn't. We actually watched the Dodgers win the World Series, the game that we went to. Yeah, we went to the last game, but that was okay. I mean, they won the pennant, and they got as far as they did, and the Dodgers had an amazing season. So it was a great experience. Just being able to go to a World Series was really cool, and seeing a team celebrate on the field in person was really cool too.
Did you have a hard time getting tickets?
No, they weren't cheap.
Okay.
But no.
Okay. Well, I mean, supply and demand. If you're willing to pay, you're going to get your ticket. So you did. And
yeah, they were nosebleeds. In fact, we were the very top row of the stadium, the highest the stadium went. We were the last row.
Wow.
Yeah.
So Dallas, so that was the stadium for which team?
The Texas Rangers, new stadium that the Rangers have not even played in yet.
Oh, really? Okay. Didn't know that. Okay.
Yeah, it was opening last year, but since they didn't, I'm sorry. The Rangers played there, but fans hadn't been in yet.
Okay.
So the World Series was the first time that fans got to be in their new stadium.
So how was it, that new stadium?
It was beautiful. It was really nice. A very, very impressive stadium. It had a dome, but it had a retractable roof. So it was closed that night because it was freezing.
Oh, yeah.
It was 40 degrees.
Okay.
Yeah, it was really cold.
Yeah, that's not ideal baseball weather.
Thankfully, it wasn't too cold inside with the roof shut.
What's the weather like in Florida right now?
It's gorgeous today. I think the high is 72. And it's actually chilly now. The lows are in the upper 40s in the morning, which is cold. That's cold.
Yeah,
Florida, that's cold. And January is our cold month. January and February are our coldest months.
And do you get a lot of rain during that time, or?
No, the rainy season is summertime, like late summer.
Okay. We're going to switch gears again. I was curious about the COVID situation in Florida and in your city. How are things going right now?
Well, probably not good. I mean, if you look how things are across the country right now, it's pretty much as bad as it's been. But you know, Florida has a well-earned reputation, and everyone kind of knows it. You know, you don't really notice it that much because everything's open. You have to wear masks everywhere,
Okay.
and there's limited capacity. But you can shop. I go out to eat a few times a month.
Hmm.
I went to my first movie a couple weeks ago, the movie theater.
They are open?
They're open. There's not a lot playing just because there's not a lot out
Yeah,
right now.
that's true.
I was one of six people in the theater, so I definitely plenty of social distancing there.
Yeah. What did you go see?
I saw a movie called Promising Young Woman, which
Oh,
is a dark
with
comedy thriller with
Carey Mulligan.
yeah, and
Okay, yeah.
it's excellent, and it's wild. It's a revenge flick in the Me Too era, and
Okay.
boy, does she get her revenge!
It's the new I Spit on Your Grave.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah, it's a little more dark humor in it
Okay.
than that. It's not a all out like a more like a horror movie like that one was, but
Okay.
it was good.
I heard good things about it. I might check it out when I have the chance. Okay, we can move to a few questions if you want.
Sure.
I know that you're a sports guy, so I can ask a few questions about sports. What is your favorite sports movie?
I would probably say I like Remember the Titans is a good one.
Mm-hmm.
Now I'm my brain's slowing down. Of course, Slapshot is a classic.
Of course.
That one, yeah, those are probably my two favorites, just off the top of my head.
I would always approve of Slapshot as a
Yeah.
favorite sports movie. Definitely. Question 2, what is your favorite sports book? Could be a biography, could be fiction, whatever.
That's a good question. I'm not a huge reader except when it comes to music related books. So
I got a question on that in a few minutes.
yeah. So sports books, I've read a few biographies, but haven't really read a whole lot of sports books.
That's okay. That's okay. That's not a problem. What is your earliest memory of a sports event?
Probably in terms of when I was actually interested in it, because I'm sure I saw some things when I was younger, but probably when I had mentioned when I fell in love with the Atlanta Braves in 1982. They were the first team to win their first 12 games. They started off the season 12-0, which has never happened in Major League history, and it still hasn't been broken.
Nice.
So I remember watching their 10th win, their 11th win, and then their 12th win was they broke the record.
Okay.
So I remember watching that, and that was just the whole team going crazy because they broke a record, and the stadium was jam packed, and everyone was the Braves fever was everywhere. So that's one of my first memories is watching that.
You mentioned those good years before. I remember Dale Murphy, as I mentioned, but can you name me other players just in case I would remember them?
Yeah, from that era, I'm trying to think of the big ones were. They didn't have a whole lot of all-stars, but they had Phil Niekro.
Oh yeah, okay, yeah.
Who just died a couple weeks ago. They had outfielders like Claudell Washington.
Yes, I remember.
Chris Chambliss was the first baseman. Bob Horner was the third baseman.
Yes, okay.
Rafael Ramirez was, I think, a shortstop, and they had Brett Butler was the center fielder.
I don't remember him playing for Atlanta. I remember him on the Giants, but not on the Braves.
I think he was a pretty young kid when he was with the Braves at that time.
Okay, cool. Okay, so next question. What is your favorite or most memorable sports event that you saw in person?
Probably the World Series game that I mentioned earlier. That was really cool. I also saw, as part of the American League Championship Series in 2008, I saw the Rays play the Red Sox, extra innings. That was cool. And then I saw several Florida State Miami games Most of them heartbreakers. Wide Right 1.
Yeah, Wide Right.
Wide Right 2.
Yes.
I was there for those.
You were there?
So, yeah.
Oh
yeah.
my God. Oh.
So, yeah, that was my era
Wow.
when I was in college. So
The walk back home must have been torture.
it was pretty miserable. Yeah.
Oh my God. Scott Bentley. Was it the kicker's name?
Yeah, I think. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
For one of those games anyway?
Yeah.
All right. Oh, memories.
Yeah.
Jesus. Okay, so we can switch to movies/music if you want. Question one: what is your favorite music movie?
When I was a kid, it was, and this is a terrible movie, but it was it was the Sergeant Pepper movie.
Okay.
That came out in '78. I saw it at the theater, and I just saw it once because back then, you didn't see movies 1,000 times. You saw them at the theater, and then you didn't see it again because there was no such thing as VCRs.
Not true.
But I loved it. It was really a strange obsession.
It's been mentioned a few times on this podcast.
I know.
That movie.
Yeah, I had the album. I had a poster. I had a T-shirt. Wow. I loved it, but looking back on it now, because it's such a terrible movie, and when I saw it again years later, I can't believe that I used to like it because it's so awful. But I realized that it was the music.
Yeah.
I mean that was the first time that I had heard those songs before. Now they were being done by not the Beatles, but they're such great songs that I just fell in love with the soundtrack, and I fell in love with the songs. So. Okay. I think that's why I, looking back, and that's, that was my first introduction to the Beatles catalog, was hearing them interpreted by other people. So,
okay.
So that's, but yeah, it's a terrible movie, but now my favorite music movie now, and I love so many of them, but is probably Sing Street. Have you ever seen that one?
It rings a bell, but
3 or 4
I
years
haven't
ago.
Okay.
It takes place in the mid 80s, and it's about this group of Irish boys, and one of them they're just complete dorks, and they have no musical capability at all.
Okay.
And the kid gets a crush on a girl, and to impress her, he says, "Oh, I'm in a band," which he's not. So then he goes to her friends and say, "Okay, guys, we have to create a band."
Wow.
And it's such a good movie. The soundtrack is really good, and it's very 80s inspired. A lot of great 80s songs. And then the new music is very 80s influenced, and it's just a wonderful feel-good movie.
Okay.
It's so good.
Sing Street.
Sing Street, yep.
Okay. So it's a Irish movie, I guess?
Yeah, it's by the same guy that did Once. What's that movie? Begin Again.
2016, directed by John Carney.
Yes, John Carney, who had done a couple other movies. Begin
Again, nominated for the Academy Award for Best Original Song.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
Once. That's a good movie too.
All right, so plenty of good recommendations there. So then the next question would be, what is your favorite book related to music?
That's another tough question, because I love music bios. I'll read pretty much any of them. I read a ton of them. Some of the more recent ones that I've liked have been the one Heart music bio was really good.
Okay.
I enjoyed Sammy Hagar's. That was a good read. One that surprised me was Dave Mustaine from Megadeth.
Yeah.
This is really good.
Oh, okay.
I'm not a huge Megadeth fan, but it was a really good book. But probably my two favorites over the past few years have been by a couple of guys that were VJs on MTV. Matt Pinfield has a book called All These Things That I've Done, and Dave Holmes has a book called Party of One. I
read that one.
That's Dave so Holmes, good, yeah. And it's really funny.
Yeah.
Those are probably two of the more recent ones that I've read over the past few years that I really liked.
Yeah, good calls. Next question would be, what was your first concert?
My first concert was Foreigner.
Okay.
In March, I think it was March of '85, at the Lakeland Civic Center,
all right,
just outside of, just a little bit east of Tampa.
Okay.
That was my first concert. My parents didn't really let me go to concerts when I was a young teenager, so that was I think I was 16 or so around then when I went to see that show. Did you go on your own? Yeah, well, with my friends. No parents, just me and my buddies. Yeah.
And it was, well, actually, it might be the answer to the next question. Question 4, what is your favorite or most memorable concert?
That's another tough one too, because I've liked pretty much every concert that I've ever been to. I liked one that was really memorable was the Monsters of Rock Festival. It was in the summer of '88, and that was Van Halen headlined, and that was on their 5150 tour. So that was kind of the first Sammy Hagar Van Halen experience that I had. So they were the headliner, and then it was Scorpions, Dokken. Kingdom Come opened, and then Metallica played second.
Wow.
Which was interesting. Metallica played at like 2:30 in the afternoon, and hardly anyone knew who they were because it was just on their second album, and they didn't get any radio play, but not too many people really knew who they were at the time. So it was interesting seeing Metallica play before Dokken and Scorpions.
Yeah, that sounds odd. So, now.
Yeah, that one was pretty cool. But in the last several years, probably my favorite concert, even though she's not one of my favorite artists, although I do like her a lot, was Taylor Swift.
Okay.
I took my daughter to see her 2 years ago at Tampa Stadium, and it blew me away. I mean, just the showmanship and the stage, the lights, the props. I couldn't believe how good it was. I had a total blast.
Nice.
And we had really good seats on the floor, and we didn't know this was going to happen, but during the show, she takes like a little, she flies over the audience and then lands on a little mini stage to do a couple acoustic numbers, and it was right in front of us.
Oh, wow.
And we couldn't believe it. We kept seeing her coming closer, and we said, oh my God, she's going to land like right in front of us. So she was like 15 feet away from us.
Wow.
And she did a bunch of her hits right in front of us there. So that was really cool. I was blown away by how good that was.
How many people fit in that arena?
65,000 probably. Plus it was on the floor too. It was that's 65 seats, but they had the floor too. They probably had 70,000 probably were there.
Jesus.
Yeah.
I'm gonna switch the table around and ask you, what was your least favorite concert? Is there one that you really hated? Like this sucked.
there really wasn't. I mean,
I've been lucky.
Yeah, they're not really. I mean, I've been to some, festivals or shows where there was, three or four bands in the bill, and the opening band, didn't really do much for me, and I kind of didn't really pay attention to them. But that's everybody. I mean, everyone's, openers that you just don't really care about, but not really. I'd never really been disappointed. I'd never been. I don't have any crazy stories of the headliner, walking off stage after 20 minutes or nothing like that. Yeah, I've been pretty lucky. I haven't really seen anything that I didn't like.
All right. So question 6, is there a band that turned you into a fan after you saw them live? Maybe Taylor Swift?
That helped for sure. I mean, my daughter played her music a lot, and I like her music. I mean, she's a great songwriter and writes really good pop songs. So yeah, that definitely helped. Other than that, I saw Muse open up for My Chemical Romance. My son liked them a lot. So we went to that show together, and this was on their, I think it was on the Black Holes and Revelation tour, and they were amazing.
Nice.
For a three-piece band to make that kind of noise, I mean, they blew me away. That was really, really good. So I have to say, I walked away from there a much bigger Muse fan.
Nice. And where are they from, Muse?
I think they're from England.
Okay.
I believe they're English.
Okay. All right. Okay, so are you ready for the triple Qs, the quick and quirky questions?
Sure, let's do it.
All right. Okay, so question 1. Would you rather speak all languages or play all musical instruments?
Definitely musical instruments, for sure.
Okay.
I would love it if I could be much more capable of a player, for sure. I mean,
okay.
It would be cool to speak multiple languages, but that's a no-brainer for me.
All right. No, there is no wrong answer, so rock on. If you could get a ticket to any show or event, music or sports, past or present, what would you want a ticket to?
So if I could go back in time and see a show or something, that's a tough one, because there'd be so many amazing things to see. I mean, you could see Zeppelin, you could see Hendrix, you could see.
Go to Woodstock.
Yeah. Um, I probably would like to see Kiss in their prime.
Okay.
Obviously I was way too little, to see them when in their prime. So I think that would be quite the spectacle just to see their stage show.
Yeah.
Yeah, just off the top of my head, that would be one that I would like to go back in time and see that.
All right. Okay. Next question. Question number 3. What is your favorite insect?
Oh, this is easy. The bee.
Okay.
Bees. Just a few years ago when they were talked about the plight of the bees, they're becoming much more endangered over the last 3, 4, 5 years, and
Yeah.
I didn't realize what a role they play in everything.
Okay.
They really do. I mean, they've said that if bees go extinct, the planet goes extinct because they pollinate, everything. So definitely bees are my favorite insect.
Okay. It must have been because of a climate change, I guess, that they.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, that.
Good answer. Question 4. What scene from a movie scarred you for life?
I can't think of anything. Nothing really. I love horror movies, and I've always been interested in them ever since I was a little kid. So nothing really freaked me out too much.
Okay.
So I wouldn't say I've been scarred for life by anything. If anything, I've liked those scenes that have probably scarred people for life. I probably think that they're awesome.
All right. Okay. So question 5. What is the best nickname you've ever heard?
Probably sports related nicknames, I think, are probably pretty good. I've always liked the Fridge.
Oh yeah.
William Refrigerator Perry.
Yeah,
I think that's a good one just because of his size.
Yeah.
That's probably my favorite sports related nickname.
But what about outside of sports? Like, was there a guy at your high school that something weird happened to him or something?
I mean, a couple of them had some nicknames, but nothing that had any really great stories behind them or anything like that.
Okay.
Not really.
Question 6. What would you name your boat if you had one?
I might, and this is kind of an obvious answer, but I probably would name it after my daughter just because I think she has such a pretty name. Mm-hmm. We call her Aubrey, but her name is Aubriana.
Okay.
So I probably would name it that just because I think it's such a beautiful name.
Yeah, it is. It is. Question 7. Talk about switching gears. Where is the worst smelling place you've ever been?
That was probably, if I think about it, when I was in college, I was in a fraternity for a few years until I realized that frat life wasn't for me and those guys weren't for me, so I quit. But my freshman year, during during Hell Week, we had to clean up after Hell Week, and it was really, really, really disgusting and really smelling. I mean, we're talking buckets full of bodily fluids. I mean, I won't. It was really, really, really bad. It was everything that you think about fraternity, like horror stories, and there wasn't any hazing, but just in terms of just gross fraternity behavior, and we got stuck having to clean all that stuff up, and the smell made it worse because then we would of course add to the bodily fluids, because we couldn't hold it in, but that was pretty horrible.
Jesus. And do they still do that, like a Hell Week and stuff like that?
I don't know if they do Hell Week. They probably do. I know that they don't allow some of that behavior as much anymore these days, nor should they. So I'm not sure if they do that anymore. Yeah, I don't really know any. My kids aren't at college age or haven't been in fraternity or sorority life, so I don't know.
If someone knows, drop us a line. Tweet at us. Question 9. What is the most interesting thing you've read or seen this week?
I would say I just watched this really interesting documentary series on Netflix called Surviving Death, and it was fascinating. They examine near-death experiences. They look at reincarnation They look at mediums and communicating with the dead, but they look at it through a scientific lens. So they're skeptical about it, but then they also have all this anecdotal evidence, and they talk to people who have been, or at least say that they've been reincarnated. And the stories that they tell, there's no way that they would have known all of this stuff about the person that they say that they used to be. Like little kids will say that, oh, I used to be a pilot in the Air Force, and this was my name, and they would look it up, and there was that person.
Really? Huh.
Yeah. So I'm skeptical, but after watching that series, I'm a little more, I don't know. I mean, some of that stuff might be real, but that was a really interesting series.
Okay, and that's called Surviving Death.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay. I don't know if we have it on Netflix Canada, but I'll check it out for sure. It's intriguing. Okay, so question 10. If you were given a 1 minute ad slot during the Super Bowl that you couldn't sell, you have to do something with it, what would you fill it with?
I'd probably, first things that kind of come to mind with that one is I would either do some type of a PSA and something that I believe in and something I think needs to be heard more. Mm-hmm. But more than likely, I probably would do something music related, and I would plug my favorite artists that don't get the press or the publicity, because that would just be huge for them. So I would pick maybe some of my favorite indie artists that don't have a huge following and just give them this massive
exposure.
Exposure.
Nice.
I probably would do something like that just to get the word out, since I love spreading the word about music and stuff. It's kind of what I really like to do.
And if you chose the PSA, what would you focus on?
That's a good question. Maybe more awareness about. I'm trying to think what I would pick without kind of getting too political, but probably just something about whatever's all the crap that's going on in the U.S. today. If there's some voices that have been silenced, maybe try to get the word out about that, and then put some facts behind it. Yeah. So people watching it it would be more persuasive if it had, actual facts and evidence about it. Yeah. So probably something along those lines with all the garbage that's going on here right now.
Yeah, good call. Are you ready for some overtime? I got 6 more questions.
Let's do it.
All right. Okay, question 1. You are going back in time and wind up face to face with 15-year-old you. Mm. You have 10 seconds before you travel back to the present day. What do you tell your younger self?
I would probably tell myself to be more confident and not worry so much about what other people think. I think that would have helped me be. I was kind of shy and nerdy as a kid, as a teenager. So something like that. Just be more positive with myself and have more confidence.
All right. Question 2. If you could live in anyone's head for 15 minutes, just as a spectator, without controlling them, being John Malkovich, who would you choose?
Probably something music related. If I could live in somebody's head, that'd be something that's current today.
Anyone, past or present.
Or in the past.
Yeah.
I would have loved to have been Ringo Starr.
Okay.
And just sit back on the drum kit and just because I could then watch John, George, and Paul and all their glory.
Good call. Question number 3. You are on death row. Tomorrow, it's over. But you get to choose the way you will be executed. No matter the logistics involved. You can go as big or as small as you want. How do you want to go?
Well, obviously, it'd be something that's not painful at all. So I would go with something. I would have them... Thankfully, I've never been in a situation where I've needed morphine, but from what I hear, morphine is amazing. So I'd probably, I'd say morphine overdose, because I think I would be I would feel just absolutely amazing, and then it would be too much and I would just die. So that'd be the way to go.
Yeah, that's an excellent answer. I like it. I really like it. Question number 4. Your superpower is that you can give phobias to people. You can give fears to people. What things would you make people afraid of? Things or ideas or whatever.
Yeah. Oh, that would be an awesome power. Well, if you can be afraid of racism, it kind of sounds weird to be afraid of racism, but
afraid of being a racist.
Yeah,
that could exist. I guess.
And afraid of being a racist, afraid of being homophobic. afraid of being an asshole to somebody.
Yes.
If they had that within themselves, that I can't treat this person poorly because that would just be I would be afraid to do that.
Mm-hmm. There you go. Question number 5: what is the best Wi-Fi network name you've seen?
I like mine, and it's my son helped inspire it. It's Prison Mike. And if you watch The Office, there's a character that Steve Carell plays called he's Prison Mike.
Okay.
And he's trying to convince his office mates why they should be happy that they work there, because if they were in prison, it would be so horrible. He goes on this whole rant about he plays a character called Prison Mike.
Nice.
It's my favorite scene from one of my favorite comedies, The Office. So,
have you seen the British version?
I have seen it a little bit. And I prefer the American version, although I do like Ricky Gervais a lot. I think he's great.
Yeah.
But I prefer the American version.
All right. Okay. 6th question. What is your hometown best known for?
A lot of things, but probably 2 things are beaches.
Okay.
Sarasota has Siesta Beach has been named the most beautiful beach in America like several different times, and the sand is the whitest, and they've actually done studies that it's the whitest sand in the world, and it's
really?
The softest sand in the world. It's like powdered sugar or flour.
My God.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's really cool. It can be hard on your calves just to walk through because it's so soft.
Okay.
So Siesta Beach, and then MTV has a soap opera reality TV show that's called Siesta Key. That's on like their 4th season, so that's filmed here. So, and then the other things, that's all beach related. And then the other thing is the arts. Sarasota is a very artsy town. We have the Ringling Museum, a lot of performing arts centers, an opera, orchestra, a lot of theaters, and then also the circus, because Ringling Brothers was based at their summer home was in Sarasota.
Okay.
So Sarasota historically is a huge circus town. And we actually have it's a youth circus that's been around for probably 70 years. That's really popular. And do you know the famous tightrope walker, Nick Walinda?
Yeah, he was part of a family who did that, right?
Yeah, they're all from Sarasota.
Oh, okay.
In fact, when I was a kid and when I used to go to church, the Walindas went to my church.
Okay.
So he's still doing events. He does one or 2 primetime events a year. I think the last one he did was he walked across the Grand Canyon, and he did Niagara Falls a couple years ago.
Okay.
And so he's part of kind of that whole circus culture here in Sarasota.
Wow. And I'm guessing that at some point there must have been some top level athlete that's from your city.
There's been a few. There's been definitely a handful of NFL players that have come out of my area.
Is there one that comes to mind? Or?
I'm trying to think if you would know any of them. I'm trying to think who the most famous athlete is from here. Peter Warwick, who was a Seminole, he was a wide receiver for the Bengals for a long time.
Yes.
He's probably one of the more famous ones. And then I'm trying to think if Deion Sanders is from this area. I can't remember where he went to. Oh, he's from just a little bit south of here in Fort Myers.
Okay.
Deion Sanders.
Yeah, he went to Florida State.
Yep,
right?
He was there when I was there.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, I used to see him drive around campus. He had prime time on a license plate. It said prime time.
Oh my God.
So you could tell, you knew it was Deion.
Yeah, couldn't miss him. I suppose he didn't drive a piece of shit either.
No, I think I'm pretty sure it was a Mercedes.
Yeah, makes sense. All right. So that's the end of my questions. All right. So Andy, thank you again for your time.
Sure thing.
Where can we reach you online?
I'm pretty active on Twitter, and my Twitter handle is FECK999. So FECK999 is my Twitter handle, and it's all things music. I don't pretty much talk about much anything else but music.
Okay. And may I ask if there is a story behind FECK 999?
Actually, kind of going back to your nickname question, I'm a big fan of the movie The River's Edge, movie with Keanu Reeves and Crispin Glover.
Yes.
And there was a character named Feck who was the drug dealer. And because I was such a big fan of that movie, some of my friends would call me that. And when I did some fantasy football leagues back in the day, Feck would be my team nickname. So I just used that for Twitter when I joined. I probably, if I could go back and do it over again, I might not have done that, but it's there. It's been there for 4 years, so it's sticking.
Yeah, it's good enough. All right. So thank you again. I hope you had a good time. I had a great time.
Yeah, it was fun.
Thank you, listeners, and we will talk to you again.
All right. Thanks.
Bye.